A dangerous psychopath is perpetrating genocide in full view of the entire world. A toxic narcissist is in command of the most powerful army and country in the world. Another psychopath who knows no empathy rules Russia and is not only committing war crimes against the population of another country, but is sending his own soldiers en masse to a certain death without even batting the eyelid. In Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo, war criminals and perpetrators of genocide roam freely, massacring civilians with no one to stop them. Meanwhile, a handful of hyper-ultra-rich tech moguls have the entire planet at their mercy, subject to their whims, their likes and dislikes, their pathological greed, and their untold interests, devoid of all humanity and compassion. Finally, more politicians than are ever discovered happily succumb to corruption at the hands of those with economic power. Clearly, we have a mental health problem among some of the most powerful segments of our species, or at least those who possess weapons or money. But this should not absolve the rest of us of our share of responsibility for the dystopia we are building, given that many of these mentally ill people are in positions of power thanks to our votes, those of many of us, and have become rich thanks to our consumption habits, those of the majority. What is our problem as a species for us to end up glorifying such sick individuals and accepting, or at least considering inevitable, the atrocities and human rights violations they are perpetrating? A significant proportion of our species, especially in the West, also seems to suffer from some kind of mental health condition, perhaps brought on by the unnatural lifestyles we lead and the harmful effects of the current technological revolution. But all in all, it is clear that as a civilization, we have a serious ethical problem. For no matter how many laws we enact, judges cannot cope with mitigating so much lawlessness, when it is not the judges themselves who, disregarding ethics, indulge in political Machiavellianism from their positions. It seems that we have subverted what for centuries was understood as good and evil, and that now even kindness and generosity are frowned upon, to the point that many people are accused of do-goodism, as if it were something to be ashamed of. Solidarity, which until the 18th or 19th centuries was called charity or compassion, depending on religious traditions, is now seen in certain sectors of the population as a vice of the woke, right-thinking individuals who believe they have a certain moral superiority over the rest of mortals. And it might seem pathological that this is said by many of those who, in theory, should be the most committed to the vulnerable and marginalized people, the far-right Christians. However, as much as it may bother them, the woke are the closest people in our time to followers of Jesus Christ, who associated with those whom society rejected and even defended them. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone, as said in John 8:7. It is also mind-blogging that these far-right Christians agree with and even admire the 1% of super-rich who accumulate enough wealth to ensure a decent life for 82% of humanity. This is despite the fact that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God, as says Mark 10:25. Could it be that the world has been turned inside out like a sock, and we haven't even noticed? It is clear that among the powerful, there has rarely been any sense of ethics through good history. But How has it been possible to subvert ethical values and socially agreed morals to the point of whitewashing selfishness, greed, avarice, hatred and violence as large sections of our societies are doing? How is it possible that millions of people voted for Donald Trump with his messages so full of hatred and so far removed from love for one's neighbor, while they ostentatiously professing Christian faith? How can it be that so many millions of Israelis continue to support the genocide in Gaza when the Talmud, in Shabbat 31a, states unambiguously, "What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor"? That is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Whatever has caused such a subversion of values and ethical sense in Western societies, the reasons for this phenomenon would take much longer to explain and justify. Those of us who aspire to live in another possible world should realize that this world will never be possible until we internalize and embody the values that we claim to uphold. It is no longer acceptable to talk about kindness, generosity, love and peace if when the moment comes when your ego is put under pressure, in the past they used it to say temptation, you end up giving in and choosing to support everything that makes the world a worse place to live. It is no longer acceptable talking about human rights, freedom or democratic values if all of that is not based on the common good, the good of everyone, and not just your own or that of a few around you. If we want a kinder world to live in, if we dream of a truly just and peaceful society, we must first put our values and principles in order and then make a firm commitment to them. Otherwise, we will be nothing more than accomplices to those who make the world a dystopian and horrible place. Laws are not enough to bring order to the chaos into which we are turning our world. The law must be internalized in a deep and solid ethical sense, in a kind of chivalrous code of honor, which one must adhere to impeccably in any situation that may arise. In short, we need an ethical revolution, a revolution of consciousness to overcome dystopia. Something similar must have crossed the minds of Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres when they proposed the idea of the global ethical stocktake during preparations for the recent climate summit in Belém, COP30. This proposal aimed to address the climate crisis from an ethical and planetary perspective through 6 regional meetings throughout 2025. One of the elements that stood out in this global ethical stocktake was an international document that has been relegated from political forums simply because it does not comply with the markets and the imposed economic order. This is due to its philosophy and worldview, an ecocentric worldview rather than an anthropocentric one, as is the case with the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which did obtain the nil obstat for market whitewashing. I am referring here to the Earth Charter, a document of ethical principles and values agreed upon by the vast majority of human cultures. This is the third charter that we humans have given ourselves after the Charter of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Is an ethical charter which urged us to be consistent with the values we claim to uphold: respect for life, ecological integrity, social and economic justice, democracy, human rights, and peace. I invite you to read the Earth Charter and to adopt it as our personal code of honor, for we cannot live in a better world unless we go beyond the law to embody within ourselves the ethical code and values that should characterize the world in which we want to live and which we would like to live to our children.